What's up, everyone? Shane Santacroce here, and as always, let's make it happen. I have two special guests with me today to talk about some interesting topics on success, being a successful, attractive woman, what it's like, some of the sacrifices you feel you may have to make, some of the stigmas that come along with it, and some of the choices you have to make versus family versus profession. So a lot of fun stuff to talk about. We have Juliana, Victoria. How are you guys doing today?
Good. How are you?
Good.
Awesome.
So first I want to do a quick little intro. Everybody knows me, and you should. If you don't, Shane Santacroce, make sure you like, subscribe, and share, all that wonderful stuff. So Juliana, tell us about you, maybe your age, what you're looking to do, your profession, who you are, and why you're here today.
Sure. My name is Juliana. I'm 20 years old. I just graduated college, and I'm planning on going to law school in the fall to become a lawyer.
Do you know what kind of law you want to practice yet?
Not yet. I'm very interested in real estate. I see it in my future, but I like to keep my options open.
So you guys hear that, you real estate agents? I've been trying to convince her to go to the real estate route. She's currently working with me, actually, with Peak Title, and she just fits in perfectly. So big things coming from Juliana real soon. Keep you guys posted. If you're looking for a new title insurance agent, reach out to Juliana. We'll have their social media links in the description below. Victoria, how are we doing today?
Awesome. How are you?
Good. Tell us a little about yourself.
So my name is Victoria. I am 23 years old. I graduated undergrad at the University of Florida about a year ago already, and I decided to pursue my master's. So I'm currently doing my master's in medical physiology and pharmacology. It's only a one-year program, so I graduate this August. Yay. And then I apply to medical schools.
And you have, I know you kind of have a direction. You know which really direction you're looking to go in right now?
I mean, the past 5 years, it's been me leaning more towards pediatric cardiac, which is kids' hearts, and more towards the surgery side of it. So we'll see. Who knows? I know a lot of people switch up so many times before they actually get to where they want to be.
So you know what's really interesting? So we have a 20-year-old and a 23-year-old here that are both pursuing very, prestigious careers, at least in my opinion, and also working jobs as well, right? Both in the real estate industry right now, and you've obviously had other jobs over the years, but I look at that balance, and what I have found interesting, guys, this goes out to you specifically. If I go back 20 years ago when I started, my career in real estate and in other, entrepreneurial, industries, there was such a rush for everybody to kind of be number one. And I was surrounded by other men that were all fighting and working and hustling and grinding to be in that top spot. And over the past 20 years, what I've realized is I'm now surrounded by women that are all hustling and grinding and looking to be in that top spot.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, I don't know what happened and where that transition took place, but it's a drastic change from what my early 20s to where I am now and the people I work with. So guys, time to step it up a little bit. So if you need some advice, hit me in the DMs and I got you. So, Victoria, tell me a little bit. I know there's a lot of stigma that comes around being an attractive woman and being intelligent, right? There's a lot of stuff that you guys deal with, a lot of comments that are made on a regular basis. What are some of the things that you hear that kind of irk you the most?
I mean, everything. A lot of people don't see me as anything. They see me showing up to a modeling gig or something and they think I'm an airhead, and I begin to speak and they are like, wow, like that completely caught me off guard. I didn't think that's who you were. People will stereotype me and judge me way before they even hear me speak, know anything about me. I mean, a lot of people think that I'm doing this for fun. I mean, I am, but it's also because I want to pursue it and not because I'm going to just one day get carried away with work or a man who comes into my life and just let go of everything I've worked so hard for. There's so many different stereotypes. I get everything. And
you actually you've kind of had this dream for a while. And for those of you that don't understand, going to a medical profession, such as surgery, at least in my opinion, you could correct me if I'm wrong, it's not something you just wake up one day, your second or third year of college and decide you want to be a surgeon, right? When did that kind of dream or, goal set in for you?
So when I was younger, I actually wanted to be an elasmobranchiologist, which is someone who studies sharks, skates, and rays. I was really into sharks growing up. I was going to be on Shark Week. I had all these dreams. I swam with sharks in so many different countries. And then as I just got older into high school, I started doing like dual enrollment classes. So I started working at the community college and we started doing more advanced like human lab work. I fell in love with the human body, and that was like, okay, definitely human transition from sharks. And then from there, it was just immersing myself into every single specialty, every single type of surgery, meeting anyone in the profession to really see all aspects of medicine to kind of envision where I fit in best.
Yeah. So, I mean, I'm assuming you had to make a lot of sacrifices in high school. You didn't get to live the typical teenage life when you want to be a surgeon. Tell me a little bit about that.
I mean, I feel like my whole life has just been, school. I never really had a core group of friends, and we go out and do these things on weekends. I mean, ever since I was younger, yes, everyone always knew me. I was very, facey and well known. I was senior class president.
Her head blown up a little bit saying she was popular.
President of the Math Honor Society. Like, I was just everywhere, but I also had soccer practice for school, soccer practice for travel. I had dual enrollment classes at night. I was doing meetings and all this stuff. So I was just never home, I guess, after school. It was really just school and extracurriculars that took over my whole life. So school just has been all I've known. I guess I've sacrificed a lot of things, and I did have, prom, and I did have all those other things, but for me, that was my life. That's what I seem to think is normal,
It's interesting, right? Because it goes back to a quote where it says, if you want to have an easy life, make hard choices. If you want to have a hard life, make easy choices. So you kind of make a decision. If I want to work hard in my late teens and early 20s and have a great life afterwards, right? Or if you want to have a good time in high school in your early 20s and then work hard for the rest of your life, right? So it is an interesting kind of aspect to look at, especially if you're out there and you have kids right now. Kids in college or really in high school is when you should start thinking about these things. If you commit just a very short period of your life, when we're talking about, 10 years maybe between high school and college and the beginning of your career, you can have a very comfortable life moving forward. So are you willing to make those sacrifices in the beginning and enjoy all the fun things that you enjoy later on in life? So something to really think about, and really to kind of press on your kids and show them that those years of going out to the parties and in the nightclubs and all that nonsense, which, believe me, I did it. I made those mistakes, right? Is it really worth giving up the years that you can have later on? So kind of take that in consideration. And I think it's a really important lesson.
I think it's a lot of discipline in your upbringing.
Absolutely.
And it's like at this point, it's like I want to say that you just don't really know better. So you assume that that's what the norm is. But I guess once you see kids going out, people who go out every single night, like, you realize it's not the norm, but you don't feel this like FOMO or think you're missing out on anything because you didn't really. And don't get me wrong, in college, especially freshman year, I'd go out, every now and then, but I never had this itch to go out every single night. And if I didn't go out one night, it was like the end of the world, just because there were so many nights that I didn't.
I think it's the FOMO thing. That's the big part of it, is people are always so afraid of missing out on something that is irrelevant. And I will tell you this, guys, I started working at a very young age as well. I started working at 12 years old and became very successful in my early 20s. Fortunately, I was blessed, and I was able to keep that going over the years. And I certainly enjoyed my nights out, but there's a lot of sacrifice that comes with that. And discipline is probably the most important thing that you can ever really have as a character. But Juliana, tell us a little about kind of your experience so far.
I actually had a completely different experience, to be honest with you. I am very much a social person. I'm a people person at heart. I do think that a lot of our success comes from the relationships that we make with other people. And even working in real estate now, we're understanding how important it is to build relationships. So for a very large portion of my life, my social life was coming first, which probably wasn't the best thing, but I've obviously balanced it out now. But I would say my social life is almost as important, because the people that I'm building relationships with now will give me the support that I need in the future to be more successful. My high school, I was very involved, like very, very involved. I did the IB diploma, which is similar kind of to dual enrollment. You're getting college credits for taking these classes. So I did that, which was hard. It was definitely hard, but I used my social life to kind of break the balance and enjoy my life at that point. So I've never actually hit the point where I felt like I was sacrificing my like an immense amount of my social life to succeed academically.
I think that actually comes really online with what Victoria was saying, is that because you had a goal in mind and you had all these activities and dual enrollment, you didn't have that fear of missing out because your path was in a very specific direction. So although your social life was part of that, if you didn't go out on a Saturday night because you had to study for an exam,
It wasn't
no big deal to you, right?
I definitely did my studying during the week.
Definitely you studied during the week.
I'm kidding. I definitely studied on some weekends, but yeah, I definitely did some studying over the weekends. But I think a lot of it was the discipline to know what your priorities are in life.
Absolutely.
And as soon as you get that straightened away, which really happened for me in college. When I was in high school, I felt completely overwhelmed. And then when I hit college, I realized that I have multiple priorities here, and that's okay. But if I want to go out tonight, then I need to get my work done so I can still succeed in what I'm trying to do. Yeah.
And again, it comes all back to that same word of discipline, right? So one thing I do find interesting, right, is how different your careers are going to be, because being a surgeon, networking isn't necessarily a big part of your job. It's not going to be. You're going to be called in to work on a child's heart. It doesn't matter who knows you in the room, right?
Correct.
Now, being in law, especially if you're going to be in real estate law, it's all about your resources, connection, and social life.
It is.
You got to go to networking events. You got to go to all these different, events or environments that allow you to create relationships. Real estate is hard work, communication, relationships, right? Mm-hmm. Being a surgeon is very, very different. So it's interesting to see both perspectives, very similar paths, right? But very different perspectives on what the social life kind of means to you. Because yours really will be part of your career long term, right? If you ever decide to go into a private practice, maybe the social life becomes more relevant because you need to bring in clients, or, I'm not too familiar with the medical world, but I would assume you would still need some relationships and resource to build your firm or your practice. But here, your entire career, in essence, could depend on the relationships. You might meet somebody tomorrow that becomes your biggest client,
right? And
you end up building a whole firm around that, right? So it is interesting to see kind of the contrast there.
Also, I think, like Juliana was saying, that she always, her social life and her networking and how that, I guess, elevated her in a sense, and she discovered people who could help her and provide things for her that she could, do in return. I don't know if it's just because of the environment I was always surrounded by. I don't know if it's just because I was mostly surrounded by people who were in the medical fields, but a lot of people who are in the medical fields, that is it, and that is their life. So it was never really to a point where even if I was being social, it's not like these people could provide anything for me or bring anything for me besides just a good time and help me study.
I do think though that good time is important to balance out. Like, absolutely, we're talking about how strict our careers are and how strict our academics have been over the past years. And I think that those relationships and going out, and I'm not even saying going clubbing, but just having a social life balances out and keeps your stamina for reaching that goal, because people can get burnt out so easily when they aren't balancing their life. And that's really what it comes back to, that if you aren't enjoying your life and you're so focused on reaching a goal that right now we're pretty far away from, then you get
end game, right? Yeah, exactly.
Then you get burnt out and you don't want to continue.
No, I agree. But I think that's why we are where we are. You're not just someone who's pursuing, a law degree, and I'm not just someone in medicine. That's why we're multifaceted. That's why we have all these things and do all these other things outside of.
Well, what's interesting too is that, especially in the medical field, right? And I see it a lot in law also. These two careers really do require a lot of effort, study, focus, right? And you talk about this burnt out phase, which I see firsthand all the time. And what ends up happening is they spend their whole time in school instead of at least enjoying some aspect of it. And then they take the exams that you're supposed to take, whatever your entry exam is for the respective field, and they fail. and they don't make it. They don't get to the medical school they were looking to, if at all. I mean, right now you're starting to see how many people are getting declined and not accepted to any medical school.
Yeah.
It's a lot more
Very
difficult
common.
than law school. Very, very common. And it's like they look back and they just gave up all this time, all this effort. They have nothing to fall back on. They have no true support group, like a social friend group that they've connected with over a period of time. And it's like, what do I do now? I think with the bar, you have to take the test how many times? 4 or 5 times you can take it, I think it is, right?
Well, they have to take the LSAT to
Oh,
get
the
into law
LSAT,
school.
I'm sorry, yeah.
LSAT.
So you take the LSAT X amount of times and, you know.
I think I do think that most people only take it like 1 to 3 times, but
the
they're
ones that
definitely-
fail, right? This wasn't for them to begin with.
Right.
The parents pressured them, society pressured them.
Very common.
And they just end up going down this path because their family was attorneys or doctors or whatever. And it just wasn't for them. And they end up giving up on what they truly wanted to do. And then when they don't make it, they feel like, well, now what? It's over.
Right, they're lost.
And look, if anyone out here is watching this and you feel that way, you got to think about something. You're still in your 20s for the most part. I mean, if you're in your late 40s and this is happening, it's a different conversation to have. But if you're now 25 years old and you committed all this time, you're only 25 years old, right? If you committed 10 years and you're now 35 coming out, you're still good. You have your whole life ahead of you to do this, right? So it's not the end of the world to have to start over at that age. It might suck a lot, right? But don't feel like, oh man, this is just it for me. I'm done here. Like my whole life is over. You live maybe a quarter of your life at that point. So kind of keep that motivation. Like, you know what, this didn't work out. Move on to the next. And for those of you that are watching that aren't really looking at a career like being an attorney or a doctor, you just don't know what to do. These are those years from like 18 to like 28 or 30. These are your years to try everything. Throw as much shit against the wall as you possibly
Process
can.
of elimination.
Yeah, see what sticks. And you know what? If you hit 30, 35 years old and things just aren't going the way you want it to go, get a job. You know, go to wherever, Target, Home Depot, like get an actual job until you figure things out. But you have so much time. Like this whole mentality of, I got to have my whole life figured out, especially for a man. And not to sound sexist, women do have somewhat of a time clock if they want to have a family. It's just biology. What are you going to do? So men, you have a little more leeway in this, right? But you have plenty of time to try things you really enjoy and go for those first. If you want to be a model, you want to be an actress, you want to be whatever, you know, try it. And if it doesn't work out, move on to the next. But try to do the things that you love. And if you can make it work in that field, great. If not, then you start doing things to make a living, right? But
I've always said that. And I feel like that's a reason that I'm not stress free, but I think that's a big reason why I don't have a lot of stress about my future, because we have so much time. Like, I don't know if you feel this way, but I feel like I'm afforded the privilege to be able to switch up what I want to do. And I tell this to my friends that are so concerned about choosing a career and then not liking it. And I'm like, we're 20, 21. Most of my friends are 21, but we're 20, 21. We are so young. Like, go get a degree, try something. If you don't like it, go back to school or go try something else. We have so much time right now. We really do.
well, you know what it is? I think for women, and you know, you could tell me how you guys feel about this, is that when you, especially if you're going to be a successful woman, right? Well, then when does the family come involved, right? So where do we choose, at what point in our career do we sacrifice the time needed to have an actual family, right? So I think that plays a role a lot, especially with women. Men can have a kid at 80. They don't,
Right.
So they don't feel that pressure. At least I never did. But women, they feel, well, I have to at least have some path laid out if I want to have a family at some point.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that?
Well, I do see a family in my future. I do. Definitely not for a long time though. There's so much out there right now that really I want to have a very stable career. Right now I'll be graduating law school at 23. So I will have, like, I probably say I want a full 10 years in the industry before I even think about starting a family, which I guess is pretty late for most women, like starting out a family. But for me, I really want to have my feet in the ground when I decide to take that leap. That way I can always come back and I'm already respected in the field of what I want to do. So that is far into the future.
And that's a big choice to make, right? Because that is a choice a woman has to make. How do you feel on this topic?
So I was always, school is first. And I want to finish all of my schooling before I can think about that. My issue is the medical route I'm choosing to take. Let's say I just wanted to be a general family medicine physician. Okay, I could finish my residency still in my early 30s. Late 20s would be if I was, really, really rushing things, which I'm cruising right now, so wouldn't be an option anymore. But with surgery, especially, it's 7 years of residency after 4 years of medical school that I still have to pursue. So that will really be pushing me to my mid to late 30s to begin to have a family. And I do want to have multiple kids. I don't want to have just one or two. So it is a sacrifice that I will have to make. It is why many women in medicine either have kids really, really late or don't have kids at all. And when you are going through residency, it is very, very intense. A lot of women will become infertile from just no sleep, all the stress, etc. So in a perfect world, if I wasn't pursuing medicine, I'd love to have kids. I mean, in a few years, maybe my 27, 28. With medicine, the only way that would be realistic is if I start having kids end of medical school, which is, I don't want to say looked down upon, but it is very, very difficult to do. But if you want to make it happen, you will. But that's it's either have one or two kids later on and establish myself, which, if I don't find anyone in life and I end up being by myself until then, my time clock it's starting to get late. So I'll just have to start having my kids, and it'll give me the peace knowing that, okay, I've grinded all of these years and now these are my last few years that I can take time aside to begin to have kids. And because I've, busted all these years, I can provide for my kids just myself. I'm not depending on anyone else to provide for my future kids. But if someone comes into my life and they allow me to have the financial means and allow give that support and to help out having kids at a younger age, I would love to have kids starting in medical school. But
I never even thought that men didn't think about this. Never have I once thought that men don't have thoughts like this, because for them they can go a very long time until they have to have kids. And for me, it's kind of written into the plan of okay, but by probably this time, I should probably start thinking about it.
Well, because again, I mean, you don't want to be in your 40s having kids, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Can you? Yes. And this is it becomes such a controversial topic, right? About women having to choose, and why should women have to choose? It's just biology, right?
Yeah.
We might not like it. You want to say it's unfair or whatever, but it's just a fact of life that if you want to have a child, you have to have some youth left in you, right?
Well,
your body has to be able to have a child.
I do think it's important that for many people, adoption is a great option. So
absolutely, I agree.
I only bring that up because yes, your biological clock is ticking when you get to a certain point, but that doesn't mean that you can't have children. You can't.
Well, here's the thing, right? Even with adoption, let's look at that option for a minute, because this is interesting too, and I've done a little bit of research on it. When you have a child, naturally, there's a bond that is unbroken, right? It is unbreakable, and I have children myself, and even as a father, it's just a bond there that is unbelievable. But especially as a mother, that bond with that child, it doesn't matter who you are, what you do, how good or bad, how much you screw up in life, your child is there. When you adopt a child, that natural bond is not created. You have to create that bond, right? So then I see a very successful woman surgeon or attorney adopt a child and hire a nanny. Well, guess what? That bond is not being created. So now you're just adopting children to adopt the children, right?
Yeah.
Now it's great if you're doing it because you can afford to do it and you want to, provide a child a home and not have to go through the system. That's fantastic. And I'm not knocking you for it, but to say that I have a family because you adopted some kids, hired a nanny, hired a cook, and you see them, on the weekends when you're not busy and here and there after school for an hour and a half, that's not parenting and that's not being a family, right? So I think that's a thing that has to be considered as well. And again, women have to think about these things much more than men do, because a choice has to be made.
I don't feel like I can speak on the connection that you have between an adoptive child or a biological child. I don't think I can speak on that because I have no experience. But I do think that in our plan, like when the time comes, there is an idea that family becomes one of the priorities that we were talking about earlier. And it just becomes about discipline between balancing your life again.
Absolutely.
Of course.
It's just with me, it's like ever since I was younger, it was like, I love kids. I've always worked with kids, whether it was like a math tutor, whether it was a soccer coach, whether it was just babysitting, you name it. Like I love kids and I've always wanted to have kids. So from day one, it's been a thought of mine. It's not like, okay, I'll go through school and I'll think about it later. It was like, no, like this is my plan to make sure I do have the kids I have and dedicate the time to them that I want to dedicate. Like I do want to be a mother. I don't want to, not that they aren't mothers,
I know what you're saying, yeah.
but the all encompassing, you know, that comes with motherhood.
And I've never adopted a child either, so I can't talk exact, but there has to be a relationship created.
I felt like that when I was younger, and the older I got, the more I was like, well, let's see where life takes me. Let's see where I go, because.
But here's where I look at, and again, from a woman's perspective, and you guys tell me how you feel about this, but for example, you come out of school, you're doing well. And like you said, you want to be established well enough in your industry. So when you come back, you're respected, right? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't necessarily mean that you won't be passed by. So you and a guy that are both, or another woman even, that's not looking to have a family, all three of you are fighting to be a partner in a firm, right? Well, now you decide, okay, it's here I am, 33, 34 years old, like I'm going to have a child, I have the man I want to be with, let's do this. Well, now there's a process that takes place. You have to take off work. You have to get pregnant. God forbid you get bed rest or something during the pregnancy and you can't work for even a longer period of time. You know, do you just say, okay, well, 6 weeks on the dot when I can go back to work, I do go back to work. Do I spend the 2 years to bond with my child? You know, these are the decisions that women face.
What's hard too is like what you have this route and then you want to establish yourself. And like we said, in law and especially like real estate, it is a lot about networking and connections and like really, solidifying your group of people and taking off those first couple of years of you. I don't know if it's like your own practice. Is that how it is real estate law? I don't know if you have your own practice or whatever it is.
You work for another firm.
Yes. But, like, I feel like those first years as you are established in your real estate, in the field, correct. Those are like the most important. Like if you map out, like, let's say those 3 years, it'll really, I don't know, like really show your next 20 years in the field or no.
I actually, this isn't a problem that I'll think about until I get there. Like that's how I really feel. And I think this is one of the reasons that I mentioned earlier. I don't feel very stressed about my future because I do know what I want to do and I know what I want out of life. And when I get there, I get there. And if that situation doesn't happen to me, then. Yeah.
And you've made that decision, right? Like,
right.
And again, this goes back to the choice. Whether you make the choice when you're 16, 20 or 30, you still had to make a choice. And your choice is, hey, I'm going with it. My career, I'm going to make it happen. And when the time comes, I'll address it. You do want to have a family in your life, in your future. So whatever it looks like at that time, you'll take a look at it. But I think this is one of those pressures that most women that are debating whether they want to be successful or a housewife or somewhere in between, they are stressing about it, right? Like you have a very good mentality about this, that you're not going to be up all night worrying about this. You're not going to be, if real estate law doesn't work out for you, you end up in the prosecutor's office. Like, it's not going to change how you feel about the decision you've made.
No, but I also don't have that flexibility.
Well,
that's what's different. In the medical field, it's like, okay, once I pursue MD and I go through a residency program, that's years that I'm tied to that specialty. I don't have that flexibility to choose. Right. I do have to make that decision early on. So it's just so different in both respective fields.
I know.
And I see a lot of women, again, this is where that pressure comes in heavy, right? This is where the pressure comes in, is like, do I want to be and again, society these days is, I don't want to talk bad about, woman empowerment or anything of that nature, but if you want to have a family and you want to be a successful entrepreneur, you have to make a choice at some point. You've made your choice. You're going to focus on your career. You're going to make it happen. You're going to be well established. And that's what you're going to do.
I do think that men have to make that choice. I just don't think they're penalized for it. And I don't think it's as broadcasted as it is for women.
Agreed.
I do think, I think everyone has to make this choice. This is a choice that everyone has to make. We just have like these very strict gender roles that people normalize too much, that when it comes to this decision that we have to make, it's not a familial decision like, oh, well, what is the mom going to do and what is the dad going to do? It's, oh, well, what is the mom going to do? Because if the mom doesn't stay home, you have to get a nanny. But what about the dad at this point, right? We're talking about, I am serious.
Typically, in the typical household, falls on the mom to figure it out, right?
Right.
And what you said was really the key here is that men don't get penalized for it. Right.
Yeah.
If you have to take 2 years off work,
and it's not broadcasted either, right?
Of course not.
I'm not. You're a great host, but I'm sure you aren't asking your male the people that you interview that are men these same questions, because
of course not,
obviously we're highlighting women in the workplace, but I do think it's important to make sure that people know that both men and women have to make these decisions.
No, you're right. And people don't talk about it, right? Because, and again, I can only talk for like myself and guys who work, we just don't feel the same pressure. If we don't start having a family till 40 or 45 years old, well, biologically, it's just not there. If I want to start, I'm 44, if I decide to have more kids at 50, okay, no big deal. You can't have that same decision. That's just a biological difference, period, whether we like it or not.
I want to go back to, at some point when we talked about having kids, you said, okay, well, if you're having kids in your 40s, then where does all of your energy go? Like eventually you start losing that energy. So then we have, I'm not specifically talking about you, but then we have men that have this mindset, well, I could have kids whenever I want. But if you're having kids when you're 50 years old, and by the time they're 18, you're 68, that'll be a little difficult for you because you'll have no energy to keep up with them. So who does that responsibility to fall?
Right?
Exactly.
Being penalized, right? The man doesn't get penalized. A man doesn't take, if you were going up against a man and you had to take 2 years off work to start a family and he didn't, well, that's a long time, right? And not all women are going to take 2 years off work to raise their kids.
Right.
But that's typically a healthy, in my opinion, again, and you can read studies about the first 2 years is kind of pivotal for a child's life, right? You might take 6 weeks, but if you're breastfeeding, then you have that whole issue. So men don't get penalized because they're not biologically penalized. So, and I hate to use the word penalized because I don't want to say that a woman's being penalized for starting a family and having a child. That really is not, I would say it's not a fair term to use, right? But in the workforce, it's just an unfortunate reality.
Yeah.
And you're right, we don't have these conversations with men because they said, I don't even think about it.
On the next episode. On the next episode, everyone. So,
hey, any guys out there that feel this kind of pressure about starting a family as a male, please send me a message. I'd love you having the show. We'll talk about it. Because as you guys know, I mentor a lot of men and women and for different things. Women, more success these days. Men, learning how to be men. It's a little bit different. But if there are guys out there that you feel this pressure, send me a message. I would love to get you on the show and kind of hear your perspective and understand where that comes from. Me personally, I just didn't feel that. I also had kids at a young age. Had my first kid at 18 years old, right? So I was a dad. That was it. The pressure was to feed my kid.
You had a lot of energy.
Yeah, exactly. It was to feed my kid, not to whether I should have one or not. So it is absolutely a different perspective, and I would definitely love to speak to men that kind of have that. And look, it might be a younger generation thing now too, that we are focusing on, kind of stripping away the traditional gender roles as it is. Like I said at the beginning, I see a lot more women now that are reaching out to me for, mentorship or business advice because they want to grow and they want to be a successful entrepreneur or businesswoman. They're looking at C-suite type jobs, medical fields, law fields, things of that nature, more so than men these days, which I find odd. But again, that just might be, a reflection of where we are in society today as we start to strip away these traditional gender roles. Me personally, I am a traditional type person. I personally feel that as a male, I protect, I provide, and my woman can work as much as she wants or not. It doesn't make a difference to me. I'm still going to be that same role.
I do think part of it is our generation because
very much so.
We're in different generations. And
absolutely. Yeah.
I think it's very obviously there are people that are our age that believe what you do. And I'm not saying what you believe is wrong, but I think it is a generational thing that.
Yeah. I don't even think it's necessarily a belief because, belief is such a strong word. Like I believe in God. I don't believe in gender roles. You know what I mean? And I think it's weird when people say that, right? Like, oh, I believe this. I mean, if you believe in something, that's a very powerful word to say, right? Belief. It is a belief system. Like, wow, if that is your belief system, then nothing else really matters outside of it. You can't be open-minded to learning anything new about it, or things can't change. You can't look at someone else's perspective. So since we're on this topic, relationships, let's actually talk about that because, again, your generation is very different, right? So how do I say this in a polite, I guess I'm not going to say it in a polite way. A lot of men in your generation are extremely insecure, especially when you have a woman who is empowered, who has drive, who has this path of success that they want to follow. And now as a man, if they don't have that same or above, most women are not going to date down, right? It's another controversial thing to say. They're going to date up. So if you have a very specific drive and passion in life, chances are you don't want to date the guy that's working 9 to 5 for $42,000 a year. It's just reality. Now, maybe you fell in love with him in high school and you went with it, but it's just not necessarily always reality.
Well, so, I do disagree with you because I think at the same time as we're talking about like these traditional gender roles versus relationships, I think we see a lot of women in power and women that are so successful in their respective fields not caring so much about how powerful the man is in a relationship. So we're talking about. It depends
on what you consider powerful.
But I mean, right? I'm not.
I'll give you an example, right?
No. I'm talking about. You just mentioned a 9 to 5 making $42,000 a year. I think a woman would not. I don't know a lot of women that would look at that and be like, couldn't be me.
No,
ladies,
I disagree.
Please. I want to see comments on this. So ladies and men, please let me know your thoughts on this.
No. Especially if you're so successful. Like if a woman is so successful herself, she's not looking specifically for a man that is as successful as her or more. She's looking for someone that's going to complement her and her success and be a partner to what she needs.
Okay.
And
I agree with that.
A lot of times in relationships where the man is making more money, he doesn't want a woman that's making the exact same and is just as successful because there has to be a give and take to some extent. So a lot of the time we don't see these equal successes or
almost
equal
never.
couples.
Almost never.
Yeah. Right.
Someone's alpha, someone's a beta.
Why would we expect to see women dating equal or more if they're so successful? Why is that like an automatic expectation?
I honestly think that
real quick, it's not an expectation. It's just a societal norm, right? Most women, and again, when I say most, I'm not speaking for all, I'll be very clear about it. Most women want a man that is at least equal or above, right? Now, that is somewhat changing because a lot of women are feeling more empowered and okay taking care of a man, I guess is that the fair way to say it? To take care of your man?
No, because I don't see it as taking care. So I actually had the same mentality.
You don't see it as taking care of a man?
Listen, no. I had the same mentality, I guess recently-ish, where it was like, okay, I'm going to be providing, I'm going to be doing all these things that I want to do. And so if my hopefully husband wanted to stay at home and take care of the kids and pursue that role, like I had no issue with it.
So you'd be taking care of him? Who's paying the mortgage?
Well, financially, but he's taking care of me in other aspects and in my other needs.
So again, what other aspects could a man that's okay? And again, I'm not asking this to be facetious.
I mean, with my kids, with
emotional support.
Yes, emotional support.
There's much more. There are many types of support that you get from a relationship that aren't monetary.
Agreed. But do you feel the same man, right? Because this is where the question comes into play. So you're speaking about a beta male. Does that beta male have the same ability to support you as an alpha male?
But we're only talking
about a job role and
beta male is the amount of money that they're bringing into the
I disagree.
It depends on what you consider powerful. Let's forget about money. Let's talk about all the other things.
But he's not a beta male. If he's providing X, Y, and Z that I'm, not able to provide myself because I am a female or I am working.
Okay, so give me an example. Ready? You said it's not taking care of your man, right? So we'll talk about the financial
I would like to rescind that statement because I feel like in a relationship, you're supposed to take care of each other. That's why you enter a relationship with someone. So I do think that's important to say because we're talking about, this beta male, but maybe they aren't a beta male just because they aren't bringing in the same amount of money.
So then who would be the alpha beta in a relationship?
But in a relationship, it's my belief that you should be equals. you should just be equals.
I agree.
You
I'm
should
doing
be
something I want to be doing. He's supporting me. He's taking care of all these other things that I need.
You should each be doing 100%. Each.
100, I agree.
I will say,
okay.
I agree with the 100% statement.
So,
the 50-50 thing
I will
is
say
nonsense.
what I think our society, I feel like that's more traditional views that, like a woman who is very successful wants a man as successful or more successful. I actually think nowadays it is the opposite. A woman who's successful and doing what she truly loves doesn't really care so much as long as he provides. Instagram? But I will say this, I feel like especially our generation, a lot of women are becoming comfortable and lazy and just don't have discipline, don't have drive. So they're just kind of wanting to be taken care of and looking for people in those higher roles and looking for an alpha male who can financially support them.
I actually
think it's more so people who don't bring that to the table.
Alpha male with financial anything.
So what do you equate an alpha male with?
And an alpha male is a certain level of dominance and power without having to push dominance or use power, right? So Jordan Peterson had made a comment one time, and he basically said, you should be dangerous. You should be very dangerous and learn how to control that.
But
right?
how does...
So let me explain. As a man, as an alpha male, you have, I don't want to talk about necessarily the gender role aspect, but you have a certain presence about you. You have a certain compassion for others. You have the ability to help someone when they're down. This understanding of alpha male and power. And that's why I said depends on what you consider powerful, right? I don't feel a man who is powerful walks in and exerts his power over others. I believe a man who's powerful and alpha male walks in and uses his power to uplift and help others and motivate them to be someone better in life, right? But in order to do that, you have to be at a certain place in your own life.
Okay, but so that's more so not how much money you're bringing, but your role and your position and your title.
I'm talking about
I feel like that's how
you as a person in general. Right? And this is why it's hard to say that when I said when you're going to take care of, right? So the financial aspect, if you're okay financially supporting your partner as a woman, that's fine, right? But now you have to find a man who is within himself okay having a woman financially support them, right? This, whether we want to like it or not, this is an insecure man. Right? Because, or you know what? That's actually not a good. No. That's not a good way. That's not a good way to say it.
Can I interrupt for a moment? I don't like
the way I said that, but good.
Okay. One, I would like to say a few things. One, I don't like the term alpha beta male. Like, just I don't like that term. I disagree with it.
Well, it doesn't mean male. Just alpha beta in general.
Alpha beta in general. It infers this like superiority over someone else.
I don't agree with the superiority aspect that you call yin and yang. It's two things that go together.
Okay, but I would like to say, what was your question again? Bring it up, because I had something in my head.
Well, I think we got way off on the question.
I think also
it was not supporting a male, supporting your man, financially supporting a man.
What I wanted to talk about was dominance, and you were mentioning that alphas have this dominance in a crowd and able to uplift others, but there's a certain dominance to a man that is able to support a woman that makes him more secure than a man who feels like he needs to absolutely provide for his household, and a woman can only offer household chores.
But what you're referring to right now is an alpha male personality type. That he's so secure with himself that he's okay with his woman being out there and playing this role.
I didn't bring up the insecurity. I didn't think the insecurity had a part in what we were saying about finding a man who could support a man or a woman, whatever your preference is. But I didn't think
let's also kind of clarify that real quick here. Male, female, like we're not...
A partner.
Whatever your partner is.
I think it's about finding a partner that's so secure in your relationship and in your roles that you play in the relationship that wherever the tides turn, you're okay and you can support each other both ways. Mm-hmm. But I would also like to say that there's and I mentioned this before, there's so much more support than monetary support.
Yes.
And at
Yeah,
an
I agree.
age, I'm 20 years old. I have a lot of friends in relationships. And at 20 years old, a lot of people in relationships can't support the person they're in a relationship
Absolutely.
with.
Which is why you see a lot of younger women that have these amazing careers dating older men.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. But what I was going to say is I always tell my friends this. I say, it doesn't matter if he's doing monetarily for you, if he's giving to you so many other things that you can't get from other people right now. And I'm talking about emotional support, physical
course.
support, just the support to succeed in life that sometimes you can only get from someone you invest in as a partner.
So let me ask you
I
both this
agree.
question. Do you feel that you're an alpha or beta personality?
I don't think you get as far as we have having a beta personality.
Exactly, which means your ideal partner, right, would not be an alpha, it would be a beta.
No, I disagree. I think that
Or you want to call it
we
yin
also
and yang? Like,
we also need to look at our generation, and unfortunately, the quality of people, male and female, are just not the best anymore. And so I'm just speaking for myself. I don't know about anyone else, but my expectations for a male, because of what I have seen, especially my age, is right here. So it's like
mine are through the roof.
But
they
see,
should be.
But
I
see,
agree.
once
And they
you,
should be.
but I think that's why a lot of people are comfortable settling, I guess. And so once you find someone who matches your success and your drive and has things going for them, not necessarily someone within your respective field, but has their shit figured out too. Like,
well, they couldn't do that if they were going to be a stay-at-home parent.
okay, but we're just
is
saying
why
it
you need
doesn't
a beta.
matter.
But I would
once
like-
you experience that, which is very, very rare to find, but once you experience that, you don't want to go below that again. But do you get what I'm saying? Like,
Yes, that
but
goes
we
right back to my
accept-
point
I'm
of
saying
not wanting to
what
go
I'm
low.
saying is we accept these things because I think it's just so normalized today that you don't find a male who is a traditional male who thinks they have that supporting role, who thinks they have all of that stuff. They're just more nonchalant and
No, I wouldn't want to be with someone that was like that. I wouldn't want to be with someone that had this traditional idea of what their relationship is supposed to look like. But I would like to add that you can be an alpha in different fields.
Agreed.
So we're talking.
Well, I'm talking about the relationship, right?
I'm talking
But
about the
different
relationship.
aspects in the relationship.
Different
Absolutely.
aspects. When we talk about dominance and dominance in the relationship, that can be like 50-50, 60-40. You can be dominant in certain things and your partner can be dominant in other things. And you can both be alphas in the relationship
Agreed.
at different times. Those
Agreed.
are the best relationships where your role can change. You
Agreed.
can be an alpha in this situation. You can be a beta in this situation. Because as
100%.
Okay, is this where
agree
you
with
wanted us to go?
Well, no, I agree with you 100% that there has to be some type of roles, right?
Yes.
Which now we want everything to be 100% equal. This is exactly who we are. We do everything together. We can handle everything together. Like,
it's
there
just not a
has to be-
uniform role that's established within your own relationship.
There will be some type of role within your. There has to be.
But I think the roles change over time.
Absolutely.
One, the roles change over time, and two, there isn't.
It's not
just,
uniform.
at this point anymore. It's not just an alpha and a beta in a relationship. Those relationships are from the 1900s, and I'm being serious. I've seen those
But
relationships.
you both just explained an alpha beta relationship. You just don't like the terminology.
No, I'm talking about an alpha beta relationship where the roles change. The relationships from the 1900s are the roles where
This is
the
a
man
set
is the
alpha,
alpha and
this
the
is a
woman
set
is the
beta.
beta, and that's
Well, no,
it.
well, yeah,
That's
I
it.
don't agree that it's always the male's alpha and the woman's beta. I don't agree with that at all.
No, I know, but we're saying like in the relationship as a whole, we're talking about different aspects in the relationship. Okay, when it comes to this, this person
Yes.
is more alpha and beta, and then in other aspects of the relationship, this person's more. It's not like
Yes.
oh,
But
in the
there's always
relationship,
going to be
this
some
is
type
the
of role.
alpha.
But
this
here's
is the
the
beta.
thing. At the beginning of this, I said to you guys,
Situationally.
what I said to you is that in essence, you guys would, if you're going to be in that position, your ideal partner, and again, it's equal in responsibility. It could be equal in everything. But no matter what, if you're going to have an alpha and you're an alpha, that's going to be a problem. And yes, you can take charge on certain things and you can take charge of other things and be responsible. We're talking about responsibility. It's a whole nother conversation. But as far as the relationship, there's always going to be someone who plays this role and someone who plays this one, no matter
Absolutely.
what. So when I said to you guys, so you prefer
It's
a
specific.
beta male, you both got upset about that. But in essence, what you described in the past 10 minutes was that you are an alpha personality and you're looking for a beta personality to be in that
No.
relationship.
No.
But I would like
I mean, think about it.
No. I understand what you're saying, but the personality is just a part of it. So we're talking about
Every
alpha
aspect
beta
in a relationship.
in this, and then beta alpha in this. So that the original alpha beta that we're talking about, let's say I'm calling myself the alpha in this situation.
Do you feel you're an alpha or whatever word you want to use?
In certain situations, yes.
Yeah.
In others, not so much.
Agreed.
In a professional sense, yes, I do think I'm an alpha.
Absolutely.
Academically, how I've gotten to where I am, I do think I'm an
Correct.
alpha.
Absolutely, you have to be. Yeah.
But in a relationship, I would want my partner to be an alpha in other things that I can't.
Agreed.
And I talk about this
Well,
because
let me ask you a question on that. So would you not want him to be an alpha within his career? Because if you're saying you're an alpha in yours.
if it's two different careers, I always say I would never want to date a lawyer.
Yeah, no, okay, fine. But just in general.
in different careers, you can have two alphas. Yes, because
So then how can that, if you're both on a path of rising success, who takes the role as the parent with the kids?
but just because someone's an alpha in their field doesn't mean that they don't have time to give to their kids.
But
Or to their
it all goes
family.
back to the sacrifice, right? Someone has to stay home with the kids or take care of the kids, or when the kid gets sick, who stays home, the mom or the dad? Do you guys split that? It was like somebody always has to make a decision or a choice that my family comes or my business comes.
Yeah.
And for us to believe that, we can have both to perfectly balance, I promise you this, from somebody who owns several companies and is as involved with their kids as you could possibly be as an entrepreneur, it is me, right? No matter what, you have to make decisions that either affect the time with your family or affect the time with your
course.
business.
Of
There's
course you
no
do.
way around that. And we could talk about work-life balance and how to make it perfect. It's just not reality because there will always be someone else that made the choice to put their career first, and they will jump ahead of you. It's just
agree.
reality. So again,
But that comes down to your priorities.
So let's
How-
remove the traditional stereotype what alpha beta means, right?
Thank
we'll
you.
call it yin and yang because yin and yang go together. Fair
Yes,
enough.
yes,
So
yes,
when I
yes.
say alpha beta, what I'm referring to, maybe it's a traditional point of view, is that they go together in a combined unit.
I would like to
right?
say one thing that's been on my mind. We talk about this alpha male and we talk about these traditional stereotypes, and this is where we get the insecurity that men are suffering from because we're saying,
That's
"Oh,
very true.
thank you."
Yeah,
we're
I
saying,
agree.
"Oh, well, so you're telling
why
us
our generation
and-
is
No, I
at an
agree.
all-time
And we know this,
Just
that-
because I'm saying what I'm saying doesn't necessarily
no,
agree with it or not.
I'm just
this
saying
is
that-
just what society is.
I'm saying that you talk about how you're coaching men, and a lot of these men that you're coaching are teaching them how to be men and how to not be insecure. But there's a lot of security in not believing in gender roles and being in an equal partnership.
Because
and
society tells them it's very intimidating for a man to walk up to a woman like of your stature. And you guys are only 20 and 23 years old. Imagine a man who's been told his whole life he's supposed to be an alpha male, and then he sees this amazing woman that he's been dying to talk to. She's 30 years old, has this amazing career, making $300,000-400,000 a year. He makes $60,000 to $80,000 a year. And how am I going to get this woman?
And it's all because
That's
we
confidence.
encouraged traditional gender roles.
Well, again, like I said, whether
That the man has to be the powerhouse.
Look, whether I agree with it or not doesn't change whether it's real or not.
Right.
Right. So now this man, like you said, he was taught, whether society put that pressure, whatever, how does he walk up with the confidence to speak to this woman? Because that woman wants a man, or again, whatever partner type that you want. I particularly work with men in this specific field, right? How do I walk up and approach this woman and feel secure enough about who I am? And that's where the money no longer makes a difference. It's what else can I offer as a person to this other person?
Right.
So just to be very, very clear, the topics that we discuss, I haven't given my opinion on how I feel about them. I'm just talking about reality. I talk to every Monday at 4 p.m., I have 100 guys on this call, and some women now that are looking to get the same perspective, asking me specific questions. I work with hundreds of women that are very successful models and entrepreneurs and business professionals that I have conversation with. So my perspective is more so just talking about what other people are saying, how they feel, not whether or not I agree with them or disagree with them, because it doesn't really make a difference if we agree or disagree, right? It's how is this going to affect us at some point in life? And here's one thing I really want to point out. I don't know how much time we have right now. Where are we at? We're just about there to close out. But one thing I really want to point out is what truly sets the two of you apart is that we can have this conversation without emotion.
Yeah.
Meaning, you're not going to get up and never talk to me again because I made a statement that you didn't like.
Who knows?
I guess we'll see.
We'll see after the podcast.
No, but it is. I do find it at times very, very difficult that, I speak on a lot of controversial topics. Again, not even giving my opinion, just, here's the experience that I've had with men and women talking to them. But people find it very offensive. They get very defensive.
I mean, women are very emotional, so that's in our nature. A lot of people to
but
react.
But again, so that right there.
No, but exactly.
That statement alone can be a very controversial statement.
That is a controversial statement.
Into the gender roles that women are very emotional. Most women are, right? You could say that. But
when you have the discipline to separate that when it comes to business, when it comes to things like that, that's.
Well, look,
tying this back to real quick, how does a man go up to a woman that's making $500,000 a year? Just forget about the money. Forget about the money because that's not what it comes down to in relationships.
Oh, and that's part of my lesson, right? What else can you offer?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. That is not what society tells him. The society says you pull up in a Toyota, she pulled up in a Benz. She's wearing Gucci.
Toyotas are really reliable.
Exactly. So again, but understanding that confidence and being alpha does not equate to what's in your pocket. That's the real lesson that I teach, right? So, but we can't ignore all the other things that come along with that for them to understand. But we're out of time. I definitely want to have you both back to continue this conversation. I think it's good.
I have so much I want to say.
I know. And the thing is, I enjoy having a conversation like this where we can have a conversation without being mad at each other because we're talking about topics that other people want. I'm just playing devil's advocate, right? I'm not saying that I agree or disagree. So, and I say that multiple times because guaranteed somebody's going to blast me at least a dozen times or something. I said always.
It's going to be me in the comments. Exactly. In the comments. I'm going to create a fake profile. I'm just going to agree with everything I've said on the podcast.
Yeah, that was great. Change an asshole. That's it.
Wow, Juliana, amazing points you're making.
But again, guys, open format. We talk about all different types of things here, whether it comes to finance, life. I mean, you name it, we talk about it. So it's great to have good, conversations without having emotion and hating each other after the fact. So I appreciate you guys
Not that
being
emotion
here.
is bad.
And not that emotion is bad.
No,
not that all women are emotional.
A little asterisk.
Victoria.
Listen, emotion, but I see emotion in so many different ways. Emotion, passion.
Yes, explain yourself.
So we were definitely talking about this again. If you want to see Juliana and Victoria back together or separate, go ahead and send the comments. I'll have their socials in the description.
Commenting.
What's that?
It'll be me commenting. We want them back.
But no, I would definitely love to have you guys back if you enjoyed it so far. But I appreciate you guys. And as always, let's make it happen.